Hey, everybody, welcome to House 6, our movie podcast about movies. We continue with the best pictures, our trip down Oscar past. And Jared, we have made it to 1939. Are you
About time.
excited?
Only took years.
It only took years. So let's learn about the awards. So the 12th Academy Awards were held in the prestigious Coconut Grove nightclub of the Ambassador Hotel of Los Angeles, California. The show was hosted by Bob Hope, the first in his record 19 times hosting the show.
Jeez.
Warner Bros. Paid $30,000 for the rights to film the show and produce the short film. Gone with the Wind set records for nominations 13 and wins 8 in a year that is often considered one of the greatest in film history. Gone with the Wind faced tough competition from Frank Capra and Jimmy Stewart in the 11-time nominated Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, the Betty Davis-led drama Dark Victory, Best Actor Robert Donette in Goodbye, Mr. Chips, controversial hit.
Donut and chips.
That's my donut to you, Jared.
Controversial hit Love Affair. Greta Garbo's shot at comedy in Nino Chaka. I don't know how to say that one. It's a Russian word.
For a second, I thought that was the name of the movie was Greta Garbo's shot at comedy.
John Ford and John Wayne in Stagecoach. Adaptions of Wuthering Heights and Of Mice and Men. And of course, The Wizard of Oz, which has been called the most seen movie of all time. The Best Acting Awards were also highly contested with names like Clark Gable, Laurence Olivier, Mickey Rooney, Jimmy Stewart, Betty Davis, and Greta Garbo, with the results being controversial when the LA Times reported the margins of winning. Hattie McDaniel was the first African-American to win an Oscar and attended the ceremony. The Ugly Duckling won for Best Animated Short. Over the Rainbow for Best Song. And The Rain Came somehow beat Gone with the Wind and Oz for Best Special Effects. So what was going on in that movie? Silent film legend Douglas Fairbanks received an honorary award that night. So that was the 12th Academy Awards. Now we go on to the movie. Wait, before we do that, I forgot to ask you, what 3 words best describe Gone with the Wind if you had to put it on a poster and get people to watch it? So let's go to Thomas. Do you have one?
Brother against brother.
Okay. Michael?
Classic.
Brother against brother.
It's what they called the Civil War.
Oh, I thought you were going like main characters. Like they were sisters, though. They weren't really fighting, but they were fighting over, but not really.
Oh no!
Anyway.
Scarlett sure to get some blows in for those little sisters. Good lord!
Sure, she's be smacking. I had one and I forgot it.
Dang it!
Jared, go.
Oh, I don't have one. I could not think of one.
Dang,
even when I was watching the movie. But I do have a trivia for you. Joseph loves Mickey Rooney.
I don't love Mickey Rooney.
One of his favorite actors.
He's like my Dennis Hopper.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Stand the guy.
He's great in Captain's Courageous.
My 3 words or whatever, 3 words or less is going to be spankings needed.
Spankings needed.
Michael, did you think of it? Or do you want me to go on?
I don't remember what it was. I felt like it was a good one too, but I also watched the movie late last night and ended it late last night.
Didn't Michael forget one before?
Probably.
I feel like we were supposed to come back to Michael and we never did. So I don't remember what movie it was.
How about the Red Mud? There you go. I got
the
one for
Red Mud.
Thomas, just give them 2 of them for them. Jared.
Jared, I'll never. Oh no, that's 4 words.
I don't really know what Jared thought of this movie, so I can't really give him
one. I don't know. It could go either way.
We'll have to find out. All right, the movie Gone with the Wind is the 1939 adaptation of the Margaret Mitchell novel from MGM. The film was produced by David O. Selznick and directed by Victor Fleming, who had also directed the Oscar-nominated Wizard of Oz from the same year. Vivien Leigh would win Best Actress for the lead role of Scarlett O'Hara. The film had a troubled production and was delayed for Clark Gable to play the role of Butler. The film has become somewhat controversial today, but is still considered one of the greatest films ever made. And when adjusted for inflation, it is the highest earning film of all time. So we usually start off with the characters, and the main character of this one is Scarlett. We pretty much see her every scene. I mean, there's only a handful where she's not in them. But what did we think of Vivien Leigh's performance as Scarlett O'Hara?
This woman is the most frustrating woman of all time.
She is a brat.
Joseph, she is a Southern belle. Yes, she's a brat.
Were they all brats back then?
I mean, I would assume so.
Yeah, it's a very inconsistent character arc because it starts off you're like, oh wow, she is a snooty tooty, get what she wants, big time brat. Then it's like, oh, the world goes to hell and she has to take charge, take over. Like, okay, cool, I'm kind of with you here. Like, yeah, let's just fight the hard fight and get back to where you want to be. But then she gets back to being a snooty tooty brat, and I was like, what happened?
Yeah.
What happened to all the work you put into yourself?
When she's going through hard times, I was like, oh, I'm kind of attratted to her. She's working hard. She's not taking no crap from no man.
What's going on?
Those manny hands.
In one of those dresses, yeah, where it was like the tan one where she was a nurse, and it was like, hey,
I know, I like that
that
barbecue one. I'm not gonna lie.
But in the beginning, man, I was like,
there is no freaking way these people are eating barbecue in those giant dresses and suits. How are they not getting barbecue sauce everywhere?
Corsets would be popping off because
14 inches? Are you kidding? For a waist? Holy crap. I like Scarlett. She's an interesting character, and I think Vivien Leigh's amazing in this. I didn't know until like 2 years ago that she was British. I had no clue.
Oh, right. That's crazy.
So Michael, this is the actress that Patrick Stewart was, that troupe of like actors that he was following. This is her.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's funny.
So best Southern actors are British. Just letting you know.
True.
But I think she was great. Not my favorite character in this, but she definitely, I really like this character. I like this movie a lot, so I'm going to be praising it a lot. For warning, just letting you know. So,
like Jared, well, like you said, great acting, but like Jared said, very frustrating character. Okay, so the other lead is Rhett Butler, our old friend, Clark Gable. What'd you guys think of him in this one?
Creepy mustache. The mustache creeped me out though. It was too clean. It was too clean.
It's too pencil-like.
Pencil-y. He's just like Barty Crouch from Harry Potter, and I was just like, that's all I kept seeing.
Barty Crouch.
In the books, it describes him as having a perfectly manicured mustache. Like that's all I saw was this man. But yeah, interesting character though.
He's very similar to the one in the previous movie we watched, It Happened One Night. Kind of, he's dealing with the kind of this bratish girl, but he's also trying to woo her at the same time. So kind of similar. He's just got the big Hollywood presence, and he just like eats up the screen.
When she comes down the staircase, and he's just sitting there or standing there. I was like, damn, that is a very attractive man. And I can see why everybody's like, whoa.
I like when they're like, who's that dude just staring at me? But he was super charismatic, charming. Just like, it's kind of like George Clooney in One Fine Day. You're just like, man, I would fall for him.
I know.
And I love how he's not in it throughout. He just comes in
until the end,
at different periods, and then at the end, he kind of finally.
I do like it when she throws that bottle in the room, and he's like laying on the couch. He's like, "What the hell?"
Dude, I laughed out loud. It was so funny when they're like, "Oh, do you have jewelry to give to the war effort?" The lady gives her a ring, and he's like, "Oh, that I know that meant a lot, and that was really brave of you." And then she doesn't. He's like, "Oh, I bet that meant a lot."
I do like,
and that's go ahead. Sorry.
I do like how his character is kind of like the conflicted Southerner, where he's like he doesn't really want to be in this war, and he's he, he's a blockade runner, so he doesn't see any nobility in what he's doing. They even tell him that at one point. He's like, I'm not a hero or whatever. I forget what he says. But and then he's like, oh, I'm gonna go fight, and he like ends up in prison. But yeah, what were you gonna say, Thomas?
Well, he's the realist in all of this, like because you have a bunch of these Southern guys that are just like, oh, it's the glorious cause, and they're happy to go off to war, and he's sitting in the parlor going like, they're dead, like, and but also like that he's the foil to Scarlet throughout the entire movie. Wherever she thinks she has like an upper hand or something, he comes in and goes like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah, he sees through her every time, like especially when she's like crying. He's like, don't fool
give me that. Don't give me that.
Yeah, he's kind of like a modern voice in this because, like, we know what happened in the Civil War, but it's like he knows it, even though he's going through it. He's like, "Yeah, we're gonna lose. This is gonna be a disaster," and they're all trying to be like positive about it, and he's like, "No, this is gonna suck."
Well, he even brought up like, how many factories do we have? How many ammunition depots do we have? Like, what's our supply like? He's like, we have honor, sir. He's like, you can't eat honor. Like, that's not how it works. So
other characters, we get a guy named Ashley Wilkes, who Scarlett really likes. Man, she's really into that Ashley guy. He was played by Leslie Howard.
So, real fast, I've never seen this movie. I didn't know how it played out. In the beginning, she's like, "Oh, Ashley." So I thought it was Clark Gable. I was like, "Oh, he's probably like this cool, handsome dude." And then they go to Ashley. I was like, "Oh, that dude." Which, no offense to him, but it's not the other guy.
When you're comparing it to Clark Gable, you're like,
and he's like British, right?
Yeah,
he's got a British accent. His character is very unfortunate because
I actually did a research thing on this, and apparently a lot of Southern accents are in like the upper, I want to say upper crust of like Southern accents during that time period. It almost went back to British because they're very separated from Southern society and just kind of mingled with their own, and so they do have a kind of a British accent. So I don't know if they purposely did that because the actor is British, but it does make sense that he would have a very different accent than a lot of the other Southerners, because also, not to be creepy, but they also intermarried a lot, which they bring up like, oh, they always marry their cousins. I'm like, ew. But that's also a very British thing to do.
He looked and reminded me of someone nowadays, but I could not place it.
Yeah,
he reminds me of Fassbender a little bit.
He reminded me more of like Paul Bentley or whatever that guy's name is.
The Vision?
The Vision actor?
Yeah, the forehead, I can see that.
So this poor guy gets kind of like...
he has a very distinct forehead. His forehead's like this big. He's like a pompadour.
This guy gets kind of like all the bad Southern parts like thrusted onto him. Because he's like the one that believes in the Southern cause. And he gets like the cringiest line in the movie where he's like, well, we treated the slaves better than the convicts. So it's like, that didn't age well. So he is married, like we said, he's married to his cousin, and that's Melanie Hamilton, who is Olivia de Havilland. What do you think of this character?
What an angel! What a delight!
Probably the best character, as in like actual character.
She was the only like pure good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, even Rhett says that.
Yeah.
Like, he's the only good person I ever knew, or something like that.
I think that's why I like a lot of these characters in general in this movie. Nobody in this movie is perfect. Like, nobody. Except for her, and he points that out. He's like, this is the only good person, like, ever.
And then, like we said, so best supporting actress went to Hattie McDaniel in her role. So she's kind of the boss of the farm. She was, I guess, the head slave, but once the end of Civil War, I guess in history they really did stay on because there was like nowhere else to go. But so she won the Oscar for this one.
I love this character.
I love her.
I love this actress too. Like the fact that she's the first African American ever to win an Academy Award, and she's great. Like if you like watch her interviews, she's hilarious. People
I
asked
loved
her
her in it.
about like people were trying to like cancel her before there was a cancel thing because she played a black slave in a movie, and she's like, well, people are like, well, what do you think about playing a maid? She's like, I've worked as a maid and you get paid $3 an hour. I'm playing a maid and I get paid $300 a day. So it's like, I think I'm winning in this like dynamic. So, but she's great. Like I love her character. One of my favorite parts is in the beginning where she's like, Scarlett, come back here.
Yeah.
I
Just
love
made me
when
laugh.
I love when they had that argument about breakfast, and she's like, "You eat
Oh,
a
yeah.
bite," and she's like, "No, I don't want to eat a bite." She's like, "Ooh, you eat."
What a brat, man! Eat your breakfast.
She's like, you want to eat
And then-
barbecue in front of all of them?
And I think she has one of the best moments. I mean, not to go too much into it, but with Rhett at the very end when they're talking about his daughter, like that was pretty hard. Like she was very convincing with that. So
There's a ton of characters in this movie. Scarlett's got a family. She's got a dad and a mom and some sisters.
lots of husbands.
Oh, she gets married a couple times. Yeah. Any other side characters you guys want to talk about?
I didn't really care for her dad.
He was very Irish.
Yeah, and I don't know.
Almost
just-
offensively so.
Yeah. He was Irish and Southern. It was a great combo.
What's the guy's name? The guy that Scarlett marries right after the Civil War. She steals him from her sister.
Is it Frank?
I think
Something
so.
like that.
I felt sorry for that guy because Mr. Kennedy, yeah.
Mhm.
And I felt sorry for him because he got the short end of the stick and
then died for it.
then which that well, I mean we'll get into that. But
She
yeah.
totally used him. Okay, let's get into the
Exactly.
plot. So we get an intro from HBO, pretty much telling us to feel guilty about watching this movie, which I would have felt more guilty if, Hollywood wasn't so complicit on the current slave trade, but that's for another discussion. So the movie starts in all its Technicolor glory, and we get Gone with the Wind. We get the title explanation. Go ahead.
Is this the first color picture that we've watched for Best Picture? I think it is.
Yeah, first all in color. There was like scenes of color.
In what was it called? Broadway Melody. There was a color portion of that at the very end, but it was like really not good. So
but yeah, everything else has been black and white. We get kind of this poem. Gone with the Wind comes from a poem, kind of explaining how the South was a great kingdom or whatever, and now it's gone with the wind. We meet Scarlett, and we find out that she's a flirt. She's flirting with these two twins, and they're like, "Don't you want to go to war? We want to go to war." It was kind of creepy. I don't get that where girls flirt with twins because it's a Hollywood. It's a
same
Hollywood
Is
guy.
that a thing?
it's a Hollywood thing. We meet the Pa, like we said, he's very Irish. He believes in the land. He loves the land. We meet her mother. She looks very young. She doesn't look that much older than some of the girls. She looks a lot younger than the dad. I'm pretty sure he married young. And she comes in. She comes in and she's like, "Fire that man," because the carpetbagger dude. They keep calling this guy the white trash or whatever. He knocked up some girl and it's his baby. So she's like, "Fire that dude." And he's like, "He's the best dude around." And she's like, "No." She like whispers to some Scarlett, there's a barbecue, and Scarlett wants to go because all the eligible bachelors will be there. And so she's got to get dressed for this, like Jared was saying. And the maid's like, "You can't show your bosom till 12 o'clock in the daytime," or something like. So we go like to the barbecue, and like I said, there's no way, man. Barbecue is a messy meal. These people would have barbecue everywhere. Who's that man? So she's talking about Rhett. Is no one? He's from Charleston, right? So that's that guy from Charleston.
And
I'm about to chew him.
Scarlett hearts Ashley a lot, man. Ashley wants to marry his cousin because his.
You have to say it like she does, though.
How does she say it?
Ashley.
Yeah, she's always saying
Ashley. Every time she says it like that. Ashley.
She really wants to marry this man, but this man wants to marry someone else.
He's like, "You're cool, but that cousin of mine."
Rhett Butler comes in and tells her, "You're no lady," because she's like trying to marry Ashley. He was hiding on the couch. I like how he's like hiding there, and he's like, "Whoop, it's me!" And she's like, "Ah, you were listening to that? You're no gentleman." And she's like, "You're no lady." So she gets married because she's mad that Ashley got married. So she's going to get back at him by marrying some young man. So pretty much the first guy that comes up to her and says, "Hey, I love you." And she's like, "All right, let's get married." The war starts. This guy dies by measles, guys.
Didn't even make it.
He didn't even get the fight. He just death by measles. So they're on leave. We learn that Butler is a blockade runner at this big expensive dance. They bet on the girl, or not bet. They kind of auction the girls off for dancing. Rhett spends a lot. What's it like $250 or something like that?
Oh my
Something
God,
like
gold.
that.
Yeah, like how much is that nowadays? That's one expensive dance.
That's just and now at times they would just be OF models, and people do spend
True.
that much.
True. So Scarlett's there in her morning dress, and he tells her that she needs a kissing bad. And then it's Gettysburg time.
Being Han Solo, I guess.
But he doesn't kiss her yet. It's Gettysburg time, so pretty much everyone dies because that was the bloodiest battle in history. There's a chicken. It's raining. I think they're in Atlanta at this point. So there's a chicken. One of the guys is running after the chicken for Christmas dinner. They have Christmas dinner. Yeah, I'm going through this fast because there's a lot of it. If you guys want to stop, just let me know. They say goodbye to Ashley because Ashley has to go back to the fight. He was on leave, but now time to go. Melanie and Scarlett work as nurses. He tells, I forget what part this "get out of here, lady." I think it's the doctor who says that. They're losing a battle.
It would be tough to be a nurse during this because they don't have any like medicine or anesthetics or anything.
It's,
So
like,
they're just
forced into it.
operating on dudes.
Yeah,
This
we
is
see
like
this. Go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead. Oh, this is like the few things that I like kind of cringe at when it comes to like movies, especially like Civil War movies about like them like operating on people and they have no way to numb the pain and they're just sawing. I'm just like, because they have like this one, Glory, Horse Soldiers, and they all go through it. Like they're like, well, what can we do? He's like, well, hold them down. It's like, can I have any whiskey? Nope, that's for sanitizing the wound. It's like that's even worse. Like, geez. But I always cringe when they go through like the Civil War doctor stuff. It's just like, ugh.
Yeah, we see this in a scene where they need to amputate this guy's leg. Scarlett really doesn't want to do it, and she's like, "We need you in here, nurse." She goes in there, she's like, "Heck no, I'm out of here." And they're like, "We need you." She wants to go. She gets a ride from like one of her old slaves. I guess she finds them and like, "Take me home." But the doctor goes and he's like, "You got to stay because we got so many wounded." Plus, Melanie is pregnant. So she's gonna have a baby and they gotta stay for her. There's a big battle, there's a field of wounded people outside. They gotta get out of town because the Atlanta's burning. Sherman's doing his march to the
Sherman's
sea
coming.
and he's burning everything. They tell him it's a lost cause. She finally gets home. The house is it's okay. She was worried because they saw a bunch of like burnt down houses and stuff like, but her house is okay. She meets her dad and they're like, "What are we gonna do? We got no money." And I got Confederate bonds. He's gone crazy. Yes. His wife died and he has not taken it well. There's a scene where there's radishes all they got is radishes, and she runs out and she like starts eating them, and she starts crying, and then we get the famous line about never going hungry again, as God is her witness. And that's pretty much end of part one. So, do you guys want to talk about part one before we go to part two? Anything in these early chapters you remember?
I was just surprised how quickly it went because okay, so prior to I've never seen this movie in my life, never seen a scene from it, never nothing, knew nothing about this movie. So in my head, there are two movies I've never seen. I've never seen this, and I've never seen Dances with Wolves. And so in my
We'll
head,
see some of that too.
I conflated the two. I thought this was like a Native American type movie. I didn't know what
Where's
this
Kevin
movie was about.
Costner?
So I was like, I Gone with the Wind sounds like a Native American kind of movie. And that's what
I guess so.
That's what I expected. And so it starts and I was like, oh, this just must be like a before something happens. And we're just in, but no, it's the whole movie. So I was a little confused at that point. But and then just I was also surprised how quickly it kind of makes me laugh because we watched, I forget which movie it was prior that we watched, that was it The Great Ziegfeld? I don't know, one of the movies where they did a good job aging the people. And this movie, nobody ages whatsoever in like 30 years.
No.
How long it is. Like they are good looking to the end. But yeah, just the kind of the speed, the pace took me by surprise. But this is the part where it kind of gets to the part where I start actually really liking Scarlett with what she was having to go through and like her struggles and like being as strong headed and willed as she was. And I like the scene a lot whenever what's his face ends up leaving her with the cart and she's like, fine, whatever. She's like throws this huge temper tantrum and gets kind of takes into her own hands. But so I enjoyed this part of Scarlett.
Yeah, the first part I was just gonna say that I wasn't expecting Clark Gable's character to go off at this part. I thought he was going to stay, but he was like, I feel guilty. I'm going to go to the war effort and whatever. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then they had that scene where Scarlett goes into Ashley's house and you're like, oh, it's pretty run down. And then it's just gone. Like the whole backside is gone. You're like, oh, dang. And then that's about it. My thoughts on the first part.
I was surprised how fast it was going. I was like, well, okay, this is a good pace. And it does tend to slow down once a certain part happens that we'll get to in a minute. So, Thomas, did you want anything else about part one?
Yeah, again, I love this movie. Mostly because it does have a Confederate I don't want to say side, but you see it from their eyes. And even though they're telling their story, and I don't know how accurate the filmmakers made this, like to be like kind of a criticism of it, but you see in the background what they're trying to do and the lies that they're telling each other. And so I really like that, especially in the beginning where you just see the opulence of the Southern, like the antebellum South. Just like, I mean, they had literal people for property fanning them as they took naps. Like that is just insane to think.
Oh, the communal nap scenes.
That was wild.
Yeah. Actually,
why do I have to take a nap? I'm a big
yeah. but you had that just opulence, and you just like that crazy amount of wealth and like disconnect from the people that you own. They had the kids on the bells quitting time. Like I'm boss here. Like I say quitting time. So I love Big Sam. But just the crazy amount of wealth that they had and the sheer ignorance that they like, oh yeah, we can whip the Yankees, no problem. They have no idea what's coming. No idea.
I like that. The people criticize it for showing the antebellum South, but I like it because it's like you see all this wealth and it's all built on the back of slaves and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes
but then you have the Atlanta part, which is very, I'll get into a second, is kind of personal to me. You had the common folk of the South that didn't own slaves, they were just like swept up in their representatives and their ruling elite, basically, and they're the ones suffering for it. Like you see like that massive scene in Georgia, which is a great scene, by the way, where it pulls out from Scarlett kneeling beside that soldier, and you can see just the thousands of soldiers in the streets that have no help, no medical help, nothing. They're just sitting there in the hot Georgia sun being baked alive and dying.
That was a good scene with the doctor. He's like, "Help you? I got like a million dudes on the ground to help."
Exactly.
And no bandages.
Here's something that is interesting about me is that very recently me and my mother went through a lot of historical like family records. My great 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 grandfather was in the Georgia infantry and died at Gettysburg. My other great 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 grandfather was in the Kansas infantry and fought the Georgia infantry. So literally both of my families fought each other. That's why I said brother against brother. It's literally the two like genetic lines of my existence fought each other in the Civil War, which is insane to think about. The fact that I actually exist, that's a miracle right there. But the fact that there's this many people died just I mean horribly, absolutely horribly. And my grandpa George, and his name was George, Sergeant George, last name redacted, Georgia Infantry, was wounded on the first day at Gettysburg, died 5 days later. I can't even imagine the pain that he had to go through. And we kind of see that in this first part and just the absolute suffering of this. And just it's crazy that people think that all this was, justified to keep slaves. It's like, good Lord. So I really like this first part. Second part's where we get a little dramatic, but honestly, I think it's more fun in the second part. So
before we hit the second part, we have Joseph and Thomas for history, but we got Jared for the romance part. And we know we have to emphasize a part with Scarlett and Ashley when he's going off to war again. She's like, "No, you fool, you love me." And he's like, "No, I love her. I have a baby with her. No." And she kisses him anyway. And he's like, "Nope." And then walks
Turn
off.
and push.
He is hurt. He's not like adamant about it because he's still like, "Oh, she's kind of hot," but he's pretty committed. I just want to point that out.
He's a loyal guy, as
at this point in time.
All right, so part 2. Scarlett has put the family to work in her vow to make something of herself. One of the sister is not having it. She's like, "I gotta pick cotton. I never had to do this before. I hate Tara." And she's like slaps him. She's like, "Never say that." A Yankee comes to town, and he's gonna rob some stuff. And he finds a box, and he's like, "Is this all you got?" Scarlett shoots him, man. She just get off my property type of killing. And
I like Melanie. Misfire.
Yeah. Your sister was trying to clean a gun and she just
what misfired. A good liar you are.
Yeah. And they got to hide the body because they don't want anyone to see that or they get arrested. Go ahead.
Quick thing. Were you expecting this much blood in this movie?
No, he got shot in the face, dude.
In the face. And like his body's on the ground, and I'm like, oh, this is.
They didn't really shy away from it either, too.
No, and then there's like a massive pool of blood, and you're like, oh my god.
I like Melanie. You killed him. So, yep. Scarlett says, "Well, I guess I've done murder."
I did kind of like that. It's like the callback to what she said. She's like, whether I have to do blah 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 blah, blah or kill in her. Before the
kill, steal,
kill, steal, or something like that. It's just like I will never be in this position again. Basically, I can't remember the whole line of the epic ending speech, but then she's like, "Well, there's murder off the list." Basically, like one down.
Check that off. The dad comes in and he tells everyone the war is over. Everyone, this brings in the carpetbaggers. So, a little bit of history there. Ashley got captured during his last battle, so they find out. They say he's captured, and then he shows up like, wait, it was weird.
Did we get the scene where the dad was an idiot and ran off with his horse, and then he just trips, and he dies?
That happened.
Yeah,
I haven't got to that yet. I'm almost
really?
Almost
okay.
Oh no, I'm sorry. It's a different one. Sorry.
So, like I said, Ashley comes home. He says there's nothing to keep us here. He wants to leave, but she's like, "No, you got to stay here."
Red dirt, sir.
The white trash comes back into the picture, and he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna buy this." And Scarlett's like, "No, you're not. You're never gonna buy this." And the dad's watching this, and he's like, "I'm gonna get that guy." So, like Jared said, he takes off on the horse, And then the horse trips and the paw's down.
The paw is down.
Paw O'Hara is down.
I think I face palmed. I was like,
Well, it's like because in the beginning she's like, "Dad, stop doing jumps. Jumps aren't for you." He's like, "I can do jumps. It's my body, and I'm gonna jump if it puts me in danger." And then it's just like
Although
and then he goes mad and jumps and dies.
That stunt rider at the very beginning, though, that guy was going full out on that horse. I was like, oh my God, that guy's going to die.
The dad dies. So they're in trouble now because they need real money. Someone tells them that they need to make, what is it, like $300 in taxes, or they're going to take the house away. Hattie tells him that Atlanta is nothing but Yankees and scallywags or something like that. They got to go to Atlanta. So she needs a dress. So she makes a dress out of the curtains. Pretty good job. I mean, you can tell it's curtains, but she's wearing it.
She works it.
So she's going to Atlanta to find Rhett because Rhett, he
killed somebody. I don't know where he got all the money.
Got all the Southern gold. He collected it all for himself. He got all that Southern treasure down there. Rhett's in jail.
He won it in that poker match.
Yeah, Rhett's in jail playing poker with the guards, and he owes them money. They're like, it's hard to like be mad at this guy when he keeps losing at poker. So Scarlett goes there and she wants to get married. She's putting on this big act, and Clark can kind of tell. And he's like, "You're not worth $300." She's trying to sell herself for marriage.
He's like, "I'll pay $300 for a dance, but not for you."
He was like, "You're in jail, a horse jail."
So she finds the guy that wants to marry her sister, and this guy has actually done pretty well for himself. He's made like this antique shop. He's got this lumber business on the side. He's doing pretty well, and she sees that, and she's like, "Hey, man!"
And he's really into the sister. He is genuinely like, "Oh, I like her."
But Scarlett tells her that she's going to marry someone else, and he's like, "Oh no, what should I do? And you should marry me." Okay, they get married. Ashley wants to go to London. Is it not London? He wants to go to New York. Yeah, and because he like, there's nothing for them there, and he wants to make something of himself. But she convinces him to stay. She makes the poor guy stay and run the lumber business. We get that cringy line about not using convicts and because they treated slaves better or something.
I'm actually okay that they kept that there because again, it shows the sheer ignorance of what these people thought of, and like, oh, don't worry, we didn't treat them that bad. It's like, my guy, like
they were slaves.
They were slaves.
Scarlett, they kind of criticize her because she's working with the Yankees. She's like giving them lumber and stuff like that. But she's like, "Hey, man, well, you got to do what you got to do. There's no more South anymore. You got to kind of make money how we can." She's riding home, and these guys jump her and try to carjack her. And he's like, "Give me a quarter," and she's like, "No." So she fights these guys off. That former slave guy comes and helps her get away from them. And so she gets home and she's like, "Oh man, I almost got jumped. I'm so tired. You guys should stay." But her husband's like, "No, I gotta go to a political meeting." She's like, "Political meeting, man. Take care of me."
She's like, "Just because you look like Abraham Lincoln doesn't mean you can go to political meetings."
Yeah. Rhett comes in after they've left. Rhett comes in. He's like, "Where's your husband? You know, it's a trap. They're walking into a trap." Basically, they're going to do some mob violence on these guys that attack Scarlett. So the cops come and they're like, "Hey, where's your husband?" And they're like, "They're not here." Let's read David Copperfield. Let's just start reading David Copperfield out loud until these guys go home. Rhett comes back with the doctor and Ashley, but not her husband. So they get back. They're acting like they're drunk. Everything. They're laughing at the cop. Or not the cops. They're the military, right? So they're laughing at them, and they're like, "You know, where were you? You were trying to kill those guys. And they're like, no, we were actually at that lady, that lady of the night. We were kind of having some fun over there. And they're like, and Melanie's like, oh, she's like, Sean. I like, the doctor's
wife.
Yeah, she's like, what was it like over there?
He's like, you silly goose.
Yeah, have some decency. We find out that Frank actually died. He was shot.
I love how that comes about though, because it's like she's all asking about Ashley. And he's like, well, aren't you gonna ever ask about your husband? Like, well, he's laying down out there because he has a hole in his head or something like that.
So, can you guys guess what political meeting they were going to?
Go to a political meeting.
They went to go shoot
No, they did go to a political meeting. It's a political party in the South. Can you guess which one?
I thought they just went to go shoot people.
Yeah.
Yes, and this political party did do that.
They went to a KKK meeting?
Yes, that's exactly who they went to. Yeah. They really toned it down in the movie. It's a little more prevalent in the book about who they were. And I think in the movie they kind of had some apologist stuff for the KKK. And I think they took it out because the KKK was kind of being not popular at this point in time.
Imagine that.
Well, yes, they were, because freaking what's his name? Woodrow Wilson invited them. But anyway,
that's true.
The lot was coming out about what they were actually doing. And so they're like, why don't we just kind of take that out of the book?
So we get left with political meeting.
AKA the KKK. So
okay, so she's not too sad that Frank has died, and Rhett finally proposes marriage, and she doesn't even want it at first, but he's like, I'm rich, man. I got the money.
I like when he's like, you're not, because she drinks the cologne or like swishes it in her mouth.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can smell the brandy on you. It's everywhere.
I feel like their dynamic there was really good though. She's like, be quiet, you don't know anything. He's like, yes, I can smell it on you, you drunk fool.
Basically proposes at the funeral, right? Or the wake or whatever
right after.
that is. Yeah.
I know you're grieving, but come on.
You look good in that dress.
That was the right time to kiss.
They finally get married, and now she's rich. And she's like living the high life, man. They're going off to, I think they go overseas, right? And
yeah, they go to Paris and London, and she's like, how rich are we? He's like, very.
And she's like, my new empire. And she gets drunk with power.
Your new empire.
At one point, she has did someone say she has 3 husbands, or I might have just wrote that for the note.
I mean, she has 3 husbands in total as of this
by the
movie.
end, yeah.
So she gets pregnant, and they're like, someone says, like, who wants a boy? I think it's him in the maid talking.
It's like, I know it's a boy.
Yeah.
That contraceptive, or where they like consummate their marriage at one point, where they go up the stairs. I was like, good Lord, Rhett is like ready to go.
So they have the child. It's a girl. Scarlett, she's still Scarlett. She wants to go back to like 20 inches, I think she says, or she doesn't want to be 20 inches.
She was like 21. She wanted to be 18 or something like that.
18, something inches, like that. So it's like, and then we find out
you're never going back to that, kid.
I love Mammy in that part. She's like, woman, you have had a child. It doesn't go back.
Yeah, not going back. So she's married, she has a kid, and we find out she still wants to be with Ashley after all this stuff goes down.
She has that little thing with his picture, and I'm like, oh, what a...
Yeah,
I know, that was so creepy.
And she drops it, and Rhett sees it, so they have an argument, and he's like, no lock can keep me out of this room if I want to be in here. He like knocks down the door. Yeah. Meanwhile, we see him as a kind of a loving father. He likes to go out with the daughter, and he's got all this plans for her. He wants her to be, around all the best people. And he's giving her horse lessons because she loves horses. Meanwhile, Scarlett, still jonesing for Ashley. She's talking to him. I forget why they're talking, but they're talking, and then he kind of admits that he's always had a thing for her, her and that he always wanted to make her happy. And they kind of hug, and then someone walks in, the old lady, and
Melanie, or
I think it's a sister. I think it's
Yeah, it's
Scarlett's
a sister.
sister and the doctor's wife. And they walk in and like, oh, so they get caught. They're having a birthday party for Ashley, and Rhett's drunk, and he comes out and he's like, "You're going to that party because
You're
this is gonna
wearing
help our
this."
baby. Yeah, you're gonna wear something revealing. You're gonna look hot, and you're going to that party." So he makes her go.
I will admit that dress was whew. Oh my.
And she's like, he like drops her off. He doesn't even go with her. He's like, she's like, "Don't you come in?" He's like, "No, you have to do this by yourself." So she goes in there. Everyone's kind of awkward about it. They're like, "Oh, hi," you know. Melanie, the Saint's there, being very gracious to her. She's like, "Come in," you know. Everyone, Scarlett's here. Later, after that, Rhett announces that he's going to take the kid and they're going to London. And she's like, "You're leaving me?" And he's like, "Yeah," because he's pretty much planning to stay in London, right?
Yeah.
And he tells her cats are better moms than you because he wants the kid. So he takes her to London. But they're there, but the daughter doesn't really take to it, and she wants her mom because, you know, girls miss their moms. So he's like, "Okay, I'll take you back."
I like the British housemaid. She's like, "Well, if you come to her rescue in the dark, she's never gonna stop crying about being in the dark." It's like just telling
she's
him
like,
it
"Let her
is about
cry one
parenting.
night,"
Yeah,
and he's like, "Let her cry."
Oh yeah!
How
you're
dare you let her
excused.
cry?
Get out of here!
Get out of here! You're fired.
just trying to help
fine.
him. She's like, "Am I wrong?"
Like, that kid's gonna be a brat. That kid's gonna be a brat. So he takes her back to the home, and he pretty much like, "Hey, I'm just here to drop her off." It's like a kind of a divorced dad kind of thing. He's like, "I'm dropping her off, and I'm getting back on the train back to London."
Every other weekend, we go back and forth.
They can afford it.
And then she's like, she tells him that she's pregnant again. And he's like, you know, he's not super happy about it. And he's like, "Maybe you'll have an accident." And right at that second, she flies off the staircase. So she's not gonna hit him, and he like dodges, and she like falls down the staircase.
This mansion with the Beauty and the Beast foyer just like falls
Dude,
down all
That
those
house
stairs.
is huge.
That
man.
staircase is massive. Holy crap.
That's
That's bigger than my apartment.
I couldn't get over the walls in their bedroom, let alone their bedroom itself. But then the walls had like these ornate things that broke down into a frame of a picture. I'm like,
Yeah.
like what kind of stupid rich you have to be to have a room
Dude,
like
he
that?
took all of the South's money.
It
I'm
is
pretty sure.
stupid rich. I'm like, what realism is this building to anyone? This is insane.
So she loses the kid, and it's sad, and that makes Rhett real sad because, you know, he wanted a son, and so he's kind of distraught about it. And he says that he apologizes to Scarlett, and, you know, he wants to make it work because they have the daughter, so he wants to be a good parent for her. And Scarlett's like, I don't really care much about you, but whatever. So there's this part where Scarlett's like hanging out at the porch, and he's teaching the girl some riding, and the girl's like, "Hey, I'm gonna jump. This horse is ready to jump."
And then she's like, "Just like Pa." Oh crap.
Yeah. And they're like, "Oh no, stop." And she jumps, and Bonnie is
The
down.
little
people.
girl falls literally on her head. I don't know how they did this. She
Bonnie is down.
This is like you, Jared, saying you laughed out loud earlier. I couldn't help it. I laughed so hard when she just goes, smack her. I was like, what is this, America's Funniest Home Videos?
You heard it here, folks. Michael laughs at child death.
no, it's hilarious. Her head hits the first post and just
The whole thing well, it's also the fact that like something just tragic happened a little too on the nose, Lee, of her falling down the stairs.
Yeah.
And then it's like it's like, "I'm gonna jump the fence." You're thinking, that rings a slight bell 3 hours ago. I'm gonna jump the fence, and then mom's starting to have the same bell ring. And you're like, it's not gonna happen, is it? Is it? And she just gets a camera shot of her coming at it. Just wipe out.
I literally said out loud, "Is she dead? She dead?"
Yeah, no, they don't shy away from like the deaths on screen. Like there's no like crash and then you hear a crash off screen and then goes back. No, you see the death happen.
When I was watching it, I thought she just hit, and I was like, "Oh, she's probably like crippled now or something like that."
Yeah.
And then it goes to like a funeral thing. I was like, "Holy!"
The bow on the door. You're like,
Yeah, the bow on the door. It's
there's
like
that.
she's dead. Because I thought she just had like a broken arm or something like that.
Yeah,
and people are dropping like flies. So I was like, "Man," I was like, "Oh my god, dude!"
Oh, we got to get to the next one, which happens right after. So
Right after that too, yeah.
Rhett kind of loses his mind. He won't leave the daughter's bedside. He just stays in there and
Shot the horse.
Yeah, shot the horse.
shot the poor horse. Didn't do anything wrong.
The poor
Like, I can't
pony
jump
is
that. I'm
dead.
tiny.
So Hattie goes to Melanie. He's like, I've never seen him like this. You got to go talk to him. And so Melanie's like, oh, I'll go talk to Scarlett. No, you got to talk to Rich. He's the one that's crazy. So she goes in there. They have like a long talk that we don't actually see. She just like comes out.
I was kind of
and
sad
she's
we
like,
didn't
"Oh."
see it too.
Make a pot of coffee. He needs it. He's been
Yeah.
up for like days.
And he's going to the funeral, people. He is going to the funeral. But that made her really weak. So throughout the movie, they say that Melanie's kind of weak and she's not the greatest health. And we find out that Melanie just dies from this encounter that she had.
I was
with
like,
Red.
did they fight in that room? What happened in there that she was just like
The tussle.
She like faints, like, and then she's dead. Well, she's on her deathbed. And
You just said she was dead, Joseph.
I forgot that she gives Scarlett some instructions. So she wants to talk to Scarlett, and she's like, "Hey, Red's a good guy. Ashley's a good guy. They're all good guys. Just take care of those good guys for me." And then
I like the doctor. He's like,
Oh, yeah.
don't admit anything right now. She
Don't you
doesn't
say
need that.
nothing. She's died peacefully. This is not about you, woman. Right now.
Do
all
not
right?
say anything. Yeah.
She's like, fine.
So Melanie dies, and Scarlett comes out, and Ashley's there, and Ashley's broken up because he loved her. And she's like, finally, Scarlett rings in her head. Oh, you loved her. You really loved her, didn't you?
I was like, now is when you're.
I know.
And then poor what's his face sees this, and he's like, I'm done.
Yeah, he's done. He's leaving. And she tells Ashley, you should have told me. And he's like, what does a guy have to do?
Everyone in the room just slaps their face, like.
Oh man! So Scarlett, she's finally figured out how the world works around her, and she's sorry. She's like, "Hey, I'm sorry. I thought he loved me the whole time.
He should have been more upfront about it. He led me on.
Now that he's rejected me, I'm all for you, man. I'll love you." And she's like, "No, I am out of here, man. You had your chance. I've got my honor to think about."
Can I say the line?
Yeah, so he gives the famous line.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
So he exit, and Scarlett, she's like, what do I do now? And then she's like, oh, I know. I'll get him back. I'll make this place great. I'll get him back because tomorrow is another day. And that ends the movie. So Gone with the Ends, about 3.5 hours long, guys. I want to know what Jared really thought about this movie because it seemed like he liked it. And
Yeah,
what'd you think?
I was really surprised. I was dreading this because of the length. And then there was the beginning was all about the Civil War leading up to it and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't really want to watch a war movie. I'm not really in the mood for that. But it was primarily in the beginning, and most of it was the aftermath of that and dealing with that, which I liked. Like the best scenes for me were when Scarlett was working and she's like, she finally knows she needs to work and she doesn't want to get back to a point where she's struggling like she did. And then I'm a sucker for romance, so I was like, oh, Clark Gable's good at that. And she seems to be good in this role. And I was just so freaking frustrated the whole time when she's like, oh, why, Ashley? And like, he's like, I'm not into it. I like cousins. I don't like you. And
I'm a cousin lover.
And then
he would do well in Fallout.
In the last third, I was like, man, people are really just dropping, dude. Like the dad, like the little girl I wasn't expecting, she face planted into that 2x4 dead. Melody, I wasn't expecting Melody. I knew she was weak because they're like, oh, she's frail, and then she had issues giving birth. But she was like, she just fainted after that conversation in that room. I was like, I don't know what happened, but oh my gosh, she's dead now. And then
Brett shot her
Scarlett,
like that pony.
and then Scarlett had the nerve to be like, "Oh, you don't like me? You should have said something." And I was like, "What are you talking about? Are you that crazy?" Like, and then I was really proud of Clark Gable's character because he's like, "I'm done with you." He said the line that's the only thing I knew from this movie was that line, and I was like, "Oh, that's where that fits in." But yeah, I really liked it. I didn't really feel the length. You got to that middle where she was like cursing out God, and I was like, oh, it's halfway. And then the next half was interesting too. But yeah, like the whole time I was like, man, Scarlett really sucks, dude. She's a real piece of work. Yeah. And I was like, I can't be mad at Ashley. He's not doing anything that wrong. Like he kissed her and kind of, he was like very like, oh, I don't know, but he was pretty faithful to Melanie or whatever her name is. She was an angel the whole time. I was like, man, she's way too nice to this lady.
She is.
And then Clark just called her out every second he could, and it made me laugh, and I loved him for it. I was like, man, good on you, dude. Like, you know she's a piece of work, but you like that. That's what turns you on. And you know that you're kind of like that. So you guys are like made for each other. So I was like, oh, this is good.
Part in the dance, where she's mourning. She's like, oh, there's a dozen women that you can have. He's like, I don't want them. I want you.
But I love their relationship. That line, dude, that one with the wedding ring, really just I cracked up for so long. Even when they're like a couple and he's like, I'm walking my daughter, and she's like, why are we doing this? And he's like, lady. And then they walk a little more, lady.
I can't get my daughter to stop sucking her thumb.
That's about just such a nice mouth.
Put some Tabasco on there. She won't do that again.
What Mammy suggests? I forgot.
I have no idea. I didn't know what it was.
Is it like some kind of oil or something?
I have no idea what she said.
Like to make it like taste nasty, I guess. Yeah, something.
I even like that that interaction and relationship with Melanie and the lady of the night. Let's say,
yeah.
And she was just really thankful for like treating her as a human. Like, oh, you took my money and treat me like a lady of the night. And they had that interaction in the little carriage, and I was like, oh, that was sweet as heck. And I was like, man, she is nice.
She's a saint.
I hate Scarlett. But no, this is a great movie. It's probably the best movie we've seen so far.
All right, Michael.
Dang, I wasn't expecting that, to be honest with you.
A lot of praise. I don't know where I am on this movie, to be honest. I finished it.
You don't like children falling on their face?
He laughed, okay?
That was the point where the movie hit like, okay, that's too much for me. That was a too much point for me. It was like, okay, we're having too many coincidental like tragedies for me to take it that seriously, and just the point of view just kind of killed me of it. Just like it just looked like America's Funniest Home Videos scene. But anyway, but I enjoyed it feels like a less dialogue heavy or a less in your face Pride and Prejudice, because Pride and Prejudice is very much about the characters. You have the Melanie sister, who is very good natured and hard and everything, and then you have the strong headed willed sister and Scarlett, who's going forward. But I feel like Pride and Prejudice kind of leans more into the character types and that's kind of how the plot goes forward. But this was unpredictable to me. I don't know. I finished the movie and I was trying to figure out what the movie was trying to say, like with the characters and and I just kept going back to like choices in my head, like the choices they were making and like the choices they regretted, because both her and Red's character both just kind of seemed reluctant to make choices, but also regretful of the choices they made, and always feel like they never made the right one. Because like he's always talking about, he's like, I'm never gonna get married. That's a terrible thing. I'm not that type of guy. I'm not this. He just kept being like, what's the word I'm looking for? Wait, there's always
we don't know,
guys. There's always a word.
Don't know,
I never know.
There's always a word.
He's always rejecting who that part of himself, or like those desires that he has, you can tell he actually wants to be with someone that actually is on his level. But then the one that is on his level, like intellectually and strong-willed, is also crazy and lost in her own choices, that she can't get over this idea of a life she had back and forth. She keeps thinking of home is where she wants to be, the past is where she wants to be. There was some line, I can't even remember who she was talking to, but she's like, we can't, it was almost she was saying it to herself but not listening. She's like, we can't think about that, or we can't go back to that, or something like that. I can't remember what the line was, but like she just has this obsession with home and all this stuff, and like this relationship that didn't ever even exist with Ashley. She's like,
she was talking to Rhett because she was like, because they go back to Tara, and she's like, I wish we could go back to before this whole war happened, Tara. And he's like, well, we'll rebuild that, and you can have that.
But yeah, so I was really trying to figure out if, I mean, I assume when you're making a movie like this, they had some intention. Like, I don't know if that's kind of my theme with stuff, with the stuff as themes. And so I was trying to figure out the theme of what they were trying to actually really put forth. And I still really, I don't know. Maybe I probably need to watch it again at some point. But I definitely enjoyed it. The ending threw me for a loop because I was kind of like, because it got to that point where finally I felt like they were on the same page, but it's like they just missed the windows. Because like Rhett before was the one that's like, hey, I'm here, I'm sorry, I did this, I was being an idiot, big-headed, blah blah blah. We weren't talking things through, and she's cranky. And then, she goes after and really, oh, you don't like me. We had that part that Jared brought up so well. And it's like, and then she's like, no, I'm sorry. You think he's like, you think sorry's gonna cut it? I'm like, that's what you just did. You just said you were sorry. So why aren't you being a little more forgiving for her? Because you're both the same god dang person. It's like, I don't know. It's just this. I was very, very frustrated by the end of this movie. With
I did like that though. I feel like that's a real relationship.
Yeah,
you never really at the right time. I'm not saying that you're like, no. I'm not talking about your opinion. I'm just saying that's what I like about this movie, because the relationships never work on a timeline, or you're always out of sync with each other. And I really appreciate this movie for kind of showing that.
Well, that's kind of, I mean, I was realizing that it was coming up, but it's also like the ending of the point where she's like, I'm gonna win him back, or like, there's always tomorrow, and then it cuts to the end. I'm like, so where are we going with this? Is it just like her living in delusion? I'm like, is she just living in delusion? Is that what's happening here? I don't know. It's a very not torn on whether I liked it. I definitely enjoyed the movie. Thought it was. I could obviously see why this one. Although you mentioned all the other movies that were in this, I'm surprised. Almost said Phantom of the Opera. Wizard of Oz didn't win. But I definitely
Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. That is a great movie too. Like, I mean, fantastic.
That's a terrible title, though.
Yeah, it
is a bad title.
Really, it makes me
worse than Goodbye, Mr. Chips.
That was pretty good, man. Mr. Chips. But like the shots in this were so good. Her acting, like we talked about before. I mean, her acting was excellent in this. Like, this was the first time that I felt like real, genuine emotion, not like just Hollywood emotion put through on the screen. Like, I was like, oh, I'm actually feeling what you like. The close-ups and everything, it wasn't this dramatic. It was like actual, like, yeah. That's what. But I don't know. It's an interesting movie. What's up, Jared?
I just wanted to praise Clark Gable's acting with, like, when he sees that she's still in love with Ashley. You could tell he was like
the anger.
Yeah. That betrayal kind of feeling.
He does a great job going back to who he was in the beginning of the movie too. Like, he just kind of has that same like his presence kind of totally shifted whenever that happened. He's like, okay, I'm going back to me being playboy rich man, gonna go pay for OnlyFans dances. But I don't know. So I don't know where I settle on the movie as in like enjoyment or ranking on that, but definitely understand why it's. I mean, like we said, it's so well done, so well put together. And like Jared said, I didn't feel the time. I looked at the time, so it's not like I wasn't aware of it, but it didn't feel like we were going on 4 hours by the end of the night. But yeah, I don't know. It's one I'll have to maybe look up some viewpoints or some other in-depth dives on it, because it was interesting. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm somewhere where Michael is. I really respect it for the landmark that it was. When I started it, it's in color and you're just like, man, this looks really good. It
looks amazing.
It's been restored, but it looks really good. And the music was great. I did like the music. The costuming was great. Everything is great. It's just the actual story is so melodramatic. It's just like Jerry said, I just get so tired of Scarlett. I'm just like, she's kind of like the Citizen Kane, a female version of Citizen Kane or something. It's like, you just want to see this person's downfall, man. It's just like, And like we said, I hated the ending. The ending where she gets. I just wanted her to be sad at the end. Just be sad because you ruined everything. But instead, she's like, "I'm gonna get him back." I'm gonna. It's a good day tomorrow. I'm gonna fight that good fight again. And it's just like, oh man, you didn't learn nothing from this.
It's interesting because you and Jared are both saying like you wanted to see her like get her comeuppance, but I was actually kind of the opposite, honestly. Because I'm like, she played such an integral role of them continuing on. Like I feel like she was so important to, despite how she did it or how she acted. She was a terrible person, did terrible things. But I'm also like, I wanted her to come out better than she was, and I don't think she did. And so I was kind of rooting for her even till the end. And so that's even more frustration for me.
And even Red, he's a great character. He's got a lot of charisma, but the dude knows what he's getting into. He has to know what Scarlett's like. He had to know that was like a doom relationship.
You can know all of that, but you can still be in love with somebody.
It was the first toxic relationship in Hollywood.
In all of Hollywood, yeah.
It's like, dude, just save yourself from this lady, man. I was happy when he finally was like, no, I'm out of here, man.
Great line.
Can't take any more of this. So it's a technical marvel, but the story just kind of oh man, I'm probably the one who felt the length the most. It was just like I got to that 3-hour mark, and I'm like, man, is this over yet? And it's like, no, I still got an hour left, and no, man. Okay, so Thomas, what did you think of it?
Like this movie is it's amazing that it is a technical marvel because we've seen all of the other movies in the 30s, right? Or all the best pictures, right?
Yeah.
And none of them have been this fantastical and just competently made. Like they're all like fairly good movies, or most of them are, except for the one we don't think of. Oh my god. But this movie was the first like blockbuster, and you can tell why. And I mean, you have other competitors that are like Wizard of Oz, which I'm sorry, I don't really like the Wizard of Oz that much.
That's a shame,
I think
man.
it's weird because you have a 20-something-year-old talking like an 8-year-old, and it gets me creeped out every time.
Flying monkeys. Why would you?
Yeah, but this movie, I understand about like the melodramatic part of the latter half. I think I honestly think it could have done with like another hour. Honestly, just to flesh out some of the characters, because the book is massive. It's like it's huge. It's one of the bigger books I've ever read, and I love the characters in this. Again, none of these characters are perfect except for Melanie, but she's like the one standing out. And
but it's also like, is she perfect, or should she stab to her sister and try and get her to?
Yeah,
right. Well, and that's the thing is that you see some imperfections in Melanie. She does have like a jealousy in the very end where she kind of realizes what Scarlett actually wants is Ashley, and just that little bit of meanness comes out in her. But in the end, she is like, well, overall, it's just not worth it. I'm a better person than that. The one scene that I just laugh at all the time is with Mammy and Rhett, where they're talking about because he asked her like, what would you get? Like, I want a red shiffer robe underneath my skirts.
That's cute.
And then he's like, what is that noise? And she just kind of picks it up a bit. She's like, as red as all get out. He's like, oh my god.
It's like, have another drink.
Have another drink.
I do like their relationship where he's like, that's the one person I'd like her respect.
Yeah. Well, and that's another thing is that they have a lot of these not prominent black characters, but they were not just shoved in the back. Mammy and what was the girl's name? Is it Kitty?
Oh yeah,
the maid.
What was it?
I felt so sorry for her because she's obviously not mentally there, but she's
I can deliver a baby.
Yeah, exactly.
And then she's like freaking out.
I don't know what I'm doing.
She's obviously mentally handicapped, but they still treat her just like as a slave. Like, what's wrong with you? And it's sad to see that. And I really like this movie. I love this time period. Civil War is a really big like part. Like the 1800s are a big sucker for me. And so I love watching movies about the Civil War and uh, just everything about it. It's just so fascinating. And the fact that it was only 3.5 years long and all this came about in this time period. Um, and the fact that, I have some family history on both sides, which is kind of cool. But it's just a fascinating movie. And I understand people think that it's socially, uh, I guess, taboo and not PC, but honestly, this makes you have kind of an understanding of what it was like and what they thought about, which I think is a really good stepping off point into why they were wrong and why this had to like go away. Gone with the Wind, obviously. But uh yeah, it's a great movie. And I don't mind the runtime. I'm sorry, like this movie has amazing pacing and yeah, it's great. So
All right. So, Jared, we have done it. We've gone through a whole decade of Oscar. Next time we get to Alfred Hitchcock in 1940s Rebecca. So, we'll see you back for then. You guys got any last words for this one? Nope. It's been a long one, but we've made it through. So, like, subscribe, and notify yourself for even more good stuff to come. And we will see you next time. Bye.